This presentation discusses the different types of theories of communication and conflict resolution. My name is Shirley, and I will be going through the introduction and conclusion. Next up, Bill and Tom will be discussing the different conflict resolution theories, including the interest-based relational model and the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument. After that, Jess and Jack will be talking about the communication accommodation theory. Last but not least, we will be presenting a case study interview on workplace conflict and how it can be resolved through a combination of the communication and conflict resolution theories discussed. Communication and conflict resolution are important parts of everyday life, whether it be working as part of a group or in social situations. Communication is defined as a process by which information is conveyed and understood between people, while conflict resolution refers to the methods involved in facilitating the peaceful solution to a disagreement among people. An increased understanding of the topic can enhance communication skills, build positive social and workplace relationships, and contribute to better organisational performance through more efficient work processes.
Conflict resolution theory.
In the 1970s, the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument was developed, identifying the different types of conflict resolution styles that individuals prefer to use. However, this model left the possibility for two different parties preferring to use different styles of negotiation, thus leading to an incompatibility in styles and ineffective negotiations. In 1983, Fisher, Urey and Patton outlined the developing integrative bargaining method of negotiation. This process evolved into the interest-based relational model of conflict resolution. This approach attempts to separate the personal parties from the problems to be resolved and directs both parties to work together towards a win-win result. The interest-based relational approach is a method which focuses on successful and integrative negotiations between parties to work together in order to reach the most positive outcome rather than both parties simply pursuing their own interests or their own way of negotiation. There has been much research showing the effectiveness of interest-based and integrative methods of negotiation, particularly in the field of labour negotiations in the workplace, a sphere where effective conflict resolution is often required.
Instead of taking a relatively strict, traditional approach to interest-based methods for conflict resolution, recently founded methods such as the bargaining over how to bargain by Kutcher and Gerstenfeld in 1994 led to negotiations between the UAW and Ford in 2007 appropriating the same method. To achieve the best conflict resolution results, parties use the following 7-step process with overall aims of agreeing with each other rather than countering each other. Step 1. Opening and shared vision. This includes the opening statements on the issue. Step 2. Presentation of joint data. Where appropriate, both sides are empowered to conduct joint data collection on the issue. Step 3. Analyze underlying interests. Both sides will engage in the joint identification and underlying interests through separate unions. Step 4. Generate options. Both sides will engage in full brainstorming of options on each issue. Step 5. Negotiate agreements. After discussing the elements of a shared vision, data, interests, and options, parties will then engage in the bargaining towards agreement on each issue. Step 6. Main table calibration. While the major economic issues are reserved for the main table, most remaining bargaining is distributed across the subcommittees that will periodically update the main table on their efforts. Step 7. Anticipate implementation. When agreements are reached on issues, the parties will also set in place clear action plans for implementation, specifying the who, what, when, where, why, and how needed to implement the agreement. Following all these steps will enable a successful conflict resolution result.
Bridging any social, cultural and power asymmetries that may exist in the work environment through performing communication accommodation theory manifests an organisation's aspiration to work collaboratively and build an effective team with equal power distribution and values each individual employee's contributions. The CAT has a particular focus on minimising and emphasising social differences between people in conversations. This is particularly important in the workplace, as IOCO found that conflict between diverse employees and employers is heavily influenced by the communication techniques used during interactions. CAT was originally developed by Howard Giles and recognised that both verbal and non-verbal signals played a vital part in communication. The utilisation of both these elements allows for interlocutors to try and accommodate for each other through the use of convergence or over-accommodation techniques, or alternatively, push away fellow colleagues by using divergence techniques. The CAT is based on four main assumptions. The first relates to socio-historical context and makes the assumption that people will bring their past experience to conversations. The second is concerned with how people involved in a conversation perceive and evaluate the proceedings. The third emphasises the importance of language and behaviours as indicators of social status and group belonging. The fourth relates to the appropriate way to accommodate by placing emphasis on social appropriateness and norms. The consideration of these four assumptions form the basis of the CAT and allow for one to consider the complexities involved with accommodating for fellow persons in a conversation.
Convergence is a strategy whereby individuals adapt to each other's communication behaviour in terms of a wide range of linguistic, prosodic, nonverbal features, including speech rate, pausal phenomena, and utterance length. It articulates a willingness for social integration or identification with one another, whereas divergence refers to when speakers accentuate speech and nonverbal differences between themselves and others. For example, this may involve the use of jargon or cold body language. In 2007, a report on the context of law enforcement by Giles, Willems, Galois and Anderson examined the effect that use of the CAT could have on improving communication between officers and civilians. It found that socio-historical context, relative to past experiences of a person and their societal group, heavily influenced whether or not interlocutors tried to be accommodating for each other. Furthermore, it was discovered that understanding was key to accommodation and achieving a positive outcome from any conversation between officer and civilian. The CAT was examined in the field of sociolinguistics by Giles, Coupland and Coupland in 1991 in order to determine the effect that national identity and use of different languages had on the accommodation of fellow conversationalists. The study found that persons who did not share a common language or background tended to be less accommodative of each other and followed a more divergent approach to communication. In comparison, upon hearing a similar accent or hearing their own language from another person, individuals tended to be more accommodative of the other person and converse in a more convergent manner.
We conducted an interview with Bill, and he shared his experience as a new employee of an IT company with us. This real-life case study gives an insight as to how a conflict in the workplace might arise, and applies a combination of conflict and communication theories to resolve the challenges that Bill faced. What was it like entering the new job? What was your interaction with your new co-workers like?
For the most part, it was all alright. There was one guy named Michael though who he was assigned to me to kind of show me the ropes of the whole organisation and kind of teach me things, but it kind of proved really difficult for me. I found him quite hostile and very difficult to approach. The first couple of times that I did approach him to try and get a bit of guidance, he just seemed really closed off to helping me and didn't really seem interested in it. And it just from then on made it really hard for me to try and approach him. It made me really uncomfortable in the job that I had because he was really meant to be my go-to guy to learn about things, and I just didn't really know where to go from there. So it made it quite difficult to settle in.
Did you resolve your problems with Michael, and how?
Yeah, so we ended up having a dispute resolution meeting with some of the managers, and through that I got a chance to talk about the concerns that I had and why I was uncomfortable at that time, and then Michael had a chance to kind of explain why he'd been acting that way, and it was just because he was a little bit concerned about his own job. And so once we kind of were both able to get on the same page and realise that, you know, we had common goals in terms of being able to wanting to work in a pretty good inclusive kind of workplace, all working together for the same kind of thing, then it made everything a whole lot better.
Did you see any changes in Michael?
Yeah, so once we went through that meeting, I then just found myself to be a whole lot more comfortable around him, and he would also just be open to actually helping me, and sometimes he would even, when he noticed I was needing a bit of a hand, he'd come over and help me. I just straight away felt so much more comfortable working with him, and then that made me feel a lot more comfortable in the workplace as a whole as well. I felt more comfortable approaching everybody after I'd kind of gotten over that hurdle, which was really good for me in that workplace.
This presentation looked at the importance of communication and conflict resolution in a workplace setting. It explained the different types of conflict resolution theories, including the interest-based relational model and the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument, as well as the communication accommodation theory. These theories were applied to a case study to demonstrate how a combination of the theories discussed can be applied to resolve workplace conflict and improve communication.